Hello and welcome to another podcast of the Sovereign Stack. The objective today is hopefully to allow people outside of the ecosystem that are barely familiar with RTokens to understand what rgUSD is. So we have with us today Meir, Meir, sorry, and thank you very much for joining us. We're quite eager to delve into the potentials of rgUSD. First off, could you introduce yourself and describe what you do at Reserve and maybe a few areas we might have seen your hand of influence?
Yeah. So my name's Meir. I worked for Reserve for the past year or so. Starting at Last ETH Denver was my first day, which was a great way to connect with the team. Um, Before Reserve, long before Reserve, I was over at the DTCC. Had hired a company called Axoni to rebuild their trade warehouse to basically run on Solidity. So my first job as a programmer, like really crazy happenstance, was rewriting like major financial infrastructure in Solidity after like basically never coding before that. So that was like a wild first development experience, but basically I was watching like the swamp, the TradeFi institutions, the you cannot change a thing institutions building like their DeFi and Solidity, while like looking across the aisle at like MakerDAO and all of these other DeFi protocols, who were very playful in their experimentation, who were like, let's try this, and that just seemed like a way superior strategy to me, than just always being stuck in what already exists. And so I was very drawn to the DeFi space. I had previously been a somewhat of a contributor at PiDAO, um, and that is another index company in the space. Largely, I found myself attracted to like the index side of this space, because what's most exciting to me is the Legos, is being able to assemble Legos to create something new. And index products to me have the infrastructure to allow you to play with like many Legos at once. And we don't normally see index products executing on that. But they're the tool sets built with the right tools, in my opinion. And that's what's kind of kept me close to the index side of the industry.
Yeah, well, Reserve certainly is Lego, isn't it?
It sure is.
Yeah, great. So that's also interesting that you got thrown in at the deep end with Solidity. I mean, crikey, talk
Yeah.
about
I had
talk
built one website in React, and suddenly they were like, "Cool, you're writing our smart contracts." It's like,
about. Whoa. Okay, crazy. What can you tell us the kind of a high level introduction to rgUSD, which is what we're talking about today?
yeah. So at a high level, stablecoins are either stable or they are yield earning, right? They're either like fixed to a dollar truly, or like kind of held on to a dollar, but also you're earning a bunch of money and it's growing in price. Um, but the problem with when things grow in price is it becomes hard to market make with. If the price is changing, that means your bid price is always changing, and your loan rate is always changing, and all the ways that you would integrate a stablecoin, which is most commonly integrated in lending and swapping, suddenly become more friction. So everyone's trying to find like the ultimate stablecoin, that grows in value with inflation, but they're all trying to make things that like always change value, and to me that is breaking your ability to compose with other systems. So this is basically like an alternative take. We don't need to fight inflation. We don't need to grow in value over time. We don't need to rebase. um, you just hold your stable coin, and you know that it's a dollar, and you know whatever you're buying in is priced in dollars, and your rent's priced in dollars, and it's a dollar. It's just that if you do stuff with it, you'll make more money. Um, a lot of stable coins try to pay you to take it off the market. Hey, we have too much supply, because we're a leverage engine. In reality, many of these stable coins are leverage engines. So they're like, here, borrow because you're ultra bullish on some other token, and then you're going to go dump it. And now we have to convince someone to hold this token you're dumping too much of. So they'll incentivize you to hold it off market. But rgUSD takes the opposite approach because it's capitally efficient. It's one-to-one backed. There is no like leverage creating an excess of dumpage. Instead, it's just, hey, you have this token and you want to deploy it. And we want to make sure that you bring the money that it's earning under the hood with you wherever you take it. So from my view, it's like a DeFi users token.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. I'll hand you over to Braden for the next question then.
So,
All right.
so with that all being said, it appears that rgUSD is fulfilling a need for like a tighter feedback loop for liquidity incentives and capital efficiency. Can you describe the mechanisms at play that allow this to happen? And maybe explain it as though the person is not familiar with the reserve protocol or RTokens in general.
Yeah. Yes, it is a tighter feedback loop. Where normally what you end up having is like a DAO has a product that generates the stablecoin. That product produces revenue. That revenue is captured by the DAO running the stablecoin. Now, if I want to capture incentives from that stablecoin, I need to go talk to the DAO and be like, hey, I'm making this pool. What do you guys think? Can you vote for my thing? And that adds a lot of time, right? And additionally, it's a very unclear process if you'll succeed. Um, Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they have other priorities. Maybe they only have a limited budget. That they're not willing to commit to your thing. What rgUSD does is says, hey, what we always have is every dollar that you've deployed, we have $1 in backing capital generating lending return. So if I hold 100 rgUSD, there's $100 which back rgUSD earning return somewhere. And rgUSD basically takes the philosophical approach of that's not the DAO's money for the most part. 10% goes to the DAO. We do need governance, and I'm sure I'll cover that later. Um, but 90% of that's your money. Wherever you deposit your rgUSD, we're gonna follow you. And so at first that is via a whitelisted process where we need to basically send the money to a rewards contract. Most of DeFi has rewards contracts. So like a rewards contract, for anyone who's not familiar with the term, is just like wow, that's a great question of how to explain that in a non. It would be like a booth that pays you per time you're in the booth. And so you enter the booth and it just starts giving you money until you leave the booth at the market rate. And so lots of places that you could deploy rgUSD already have these rewards contracts that you could deposit your position and they'll give you a reward. And many of these rewards contracts accept other people also paying you to be there because many protocols they don't want to pay you to be there by themselves. They want other people to pay you to be in their protocol. So many protocols have already designed these mechanisms and they're in place in existing structures. So what we need to do is basically make sure that that is a valid reward contract to the system. If you want to bring your money somewhere new that we don't currently pay for, you basically just have to let us know what reward contract to look at and what the position balance is, so that we can look at what the balance is in the position and how much is in the rewards contract. And with those two bits of information, we can now send the money to the rewards contract based on how much value was deposited in it during the course of the epoch. And so we're looking to do like weekly epochs every week. We're going to look at the time weighted balance of each contract, which is basically just saying we're not just looking at the balance. We have to weight it by time because otherwise someone could just deposit like $1 billion just before distribution and then remove it just after and make sure they get all the money. So we're doing a time weighting there. I'm not sure if that's low level or high level enough. I feel like that's a lot.
I think you're doing a good job.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And so basically in the future, our goal is, our engineers have given us very promising estimates I will not repeat those dates because I do not believe that's possible. But our engineers are very promising in suggesting that we can get this up in a very reasonable time of using ZK proofs for this. So right now there's a centralized component where we have to read contract balances and distribute. But we should in the future, and I will not commit to any kind of timeline for that, be able to use ZK proofs to basically you would register the contract on chain, and then using zero knowledge, the proof would be able to generate that info about the time weighted deposits, and link the rewards contract and handle in like one ZK transaction, just doing that in the way that we've defined without the ability for humans to introduce error, which I think is freaking amazing, honestly.
That's
Okay,
interesting.
so we've got that development to look forward to, and yeah, okay, so that's building out the protocol even further, isn't it?
Yeah. We want to, drop whatever centralized dependencies we can.
Yep.
Obviously there are some that can't go away, but for things like distribution, we figured to start and just get the ball rolling, it's not a lot of risk. Like if we're earning 10% a year, every week is much smaller than that. So it's only like a couple percentage exposed to a centralized party at any given time.
Could you use that same system? So, like, if you're understanding where tokens are going in like a pool, could you use that same system for like bridging tokens between chains? And
Yes.
understanding, yeah, and you could understand where they are. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Right. So I think like that technology is really cool. I hadn't really talked to anyone discussing like the use of ZK in that fashion. But our lead engineer Patrick is fantastic and really like on the ball on these things. Um, so he was showing me how it would work, and I'm very excited because that would open up like because right now we have we are looking to go multi-chain even before we get these ZK proofs up, and that will result in basically more operational work. And so there's a limit in operational overhead, like how much can you get people to do, um, which will limit how many exchanges how many layer twos or alt L1s we can expand to until we have this ability to prove. That will really, open up the door because a lot of like the human overhead will go away.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's the proofs are the way of I've heard it explained as like removing the management aspect of like proving the truth of something,
Yeah.
and instead you're interacting with a protocol that is giving you truth or not.
Yes.
And I that sounds really cool, especially when it's running. It's a protocol that can run without human interruption or is decentralized. But anyways, yeah, could you maybe give us like an example of what an liquidity incentive kind of looks like, and then like how are the metrics for liquidity incentives scored? How do you know whether something is successful or not going very well?
So that is actually an amazing question. I really appreciate that question, though. Wow, you are making it difficult for me to answer. Um, so it is incredibly difficult to measure the success of liquidity programs, especially because there's a lot of noise. Um, a lot of noise. So basically, uh, the most basic liquidity reward contract would be like a master chef. And this is basically a contract pioneered by Sushi Swap during their vampire attack. And it's like just a very simple rewards contract. You deposit assets, they deposit rewards, and the rewards just drip proportionally. Um, Curve has epochs built in. Most things have kind of adopted that epoch, where this is the rewards for this period of time, and it will drip proportionally. So if there's $100 in the rewards contract, and $100 being dripped as rewards, you'll get $100 in an epoch. But if there's, $10,000 in the contract, you're still only getting $100 in that epoch. So you have what rewards you're directing when you're directing rewards directly. But the rewards meta has kind of evolved, and so you're not directing rewards directly anymore. Like, some people vote, some people pay bounties. And so, like, how do you synchronize paying the same amount of ultimate yield when you're approaching it from many different path dependent ways? Particularly with vote bounties, you have like the price of the token you're paying people with, and then you have like this gap of time, and then you have like the price of curve, whatever that happens to be. And so like there's a lot of pricing confusion in how to address that, and even like how much did my partner protocol vote is very like hard to see. So ideally what you want to do is basically figure out how many rewards are coming from your party, how many rewards are coming from your co-incentive party, if such a party exists, and then calculate the total amount of liquidity you care about, right? So like you can just do total liquidity, and that's cool, right? Like we have $1,000 of liquidity. I paid this much, and so liquidity over how much I paid gives me like a rate. Wow, cool! This is better than other pools. But then you also have to care about like balance. So if say EUSD is paired with Frax BP, which is one of like our bigger pools, basically at certain points that Frax BP has been the majority of the pool. And so like if Frax BP is 70% of our pool and we're only making 30%, we should scale our way of assessing that pool to only reflect the dollars that we want to be liquid. So if we were looking at the Frax BP when it's 50-50 or when it's 70-30, that looks the same if you're looking at total liquidity. But it's a much worse performing one if your token is 30% of the pool than if it's 50% of the pool. And so there's a lot of like, especially as the meta of rewards grows, there becomes like more and more factors that you need to track to try to make sure that you're like maintaining parity versus your competition.
That's
Okay,
very
yeah.
interesting. I've only seen like, it's like a Reserve has talked about renting versus owning tokens. All these different things, and it seems like there's a lot of different ways it can be done, especially over time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yes.
thank you for go ahead.
Yeah, like some protocols actively decide each week if they want to just directly send rewards or go through a vote mental. And so like there's a lot of like volatility in like the actual effect that you're getting unless you're like being a very active participant.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
Go ahead.
and this effectively the rate to have liquidity. I'm guessing there's a sort of a budgetary requirement for people to say, okay, we need liquidity in our protocol, so we're willing to pay an amount of money for that liquidity, which we can then use. Is that the kind of are those the metrics that people start off with, wanting
Uh,
liquidity?
yeah. It basically most protocols want liquidity. Like not always so, right? Like you have urine vaults. Most urine vaults aren't liquid. You come in, you come out. You pay. There's like a what is it called? A buffer room. That is not what it's actually called. I cannot remember the actual name of it right now. But there's like a buffer zone where you deposit and you don't actually have exposure to like what you're earning, and so there's always like some unutilized capital in that system. Whereas reserve, you're always paying like the full minting price
Mhm.
or redemption price to get in and out, but 100% of the backing capital is being utilized. So it's able to juice more yield out of its backing because it doesn't have this like waiting room that needs to be serviced.
Mhm.
But the trade-off with that is that now it costs more to enter and exit, which is why reserve is more focused on liquidity than necessarily urine. Um, but for most projects which have like a token, the goal is to get it to be liquid enough that people can come and participate in your ecosystem. So most projects which have a token have some concept of like, what is our liquidity budget? How are we encouraging people, to service our DAO? Because that's what liquidity providers are. They're service providers at the end of the day, and they are providing services to these various DAOs who want to basically pay for the service. And rgUSD is basically optimized to say, hey, there's a bunch of people paying for a service. How do we service them the best?
Yeah. So just to jump into a question that's popped into my head. So give us an example of the kind of organization that might think, yeah, we're doing a lot of administration, let's just say. So this rgUSD looks to us like some set and forget, basically.
Yeah.
So what kind of organization would think, okay, yeah, let's go mint 500 million rgUSD?
Yeah. So let's look at like, to me, one of the most easily attractive ones is like Rye and High, because both of these are not quite stable assets, which means they need liquidity, and they very likely don't have an opposing party who wants to be their liquidity partner. Like Frax isn't rushing to be paired with Rye. Someone who really is like obsessed with being a stablecoin doesn't necessarily want their liquidity to be paired with something that's not stable. So like, the Rye and Highs, these like truly decentralized stablecoin experiments, are kind of left out to dry in incentive partners. Like most stablecoins want to incentivize purely like Peg because their LPs don't want to take on impermanent loss. And even though there are LPs who do want to take on impermanent loss risk, now they have to convince the DAO to support that because it's it's not everything covered, but just what is collectively decided. So I think that like one of the clearest, low branches that we can go for is like the Rise and Highs and other kind of float coins on the market, because all of them are paying for their liquidity entirely on their own. They don't have co-incentive partners because no one is really strongly interested in incentivizing something that has impermanent loss. In the same respect that we don't see a lot of ETH USDC pairs, incentivized, is largely the people paying for incentives have heard feedback from the people LPing that they are scared of impermanent loss.
Mm-hmm. So this is kind of an instrument almost to allow volatility to be ironed out.
Yeah, because now you don't have to find a partner who wants volatility. You can just say, hey, we want a stable coin. Here's the stable coin that will co-incentivize with us with no governance friction, that I don't have to convince someone that my token's worth it. I know my token's worth it. We'll pay for rgUSD to be here, and then it will supplement whatever we're paying.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, nice one. So if we swap over to the yields front, so obviously Reserve's a great place to capture the yield from certain of the protocols. How sustainable do you think the projected yields are, and what impacts could a significant change in yield have on our rgUSD?
Yeah, so yield is actually like a really intriguing thing, because a lot of times like the very high yields are in smaller opportunities. We see this with like urn vaults. Some of the biggest urn vaults have some of the worst returns. And why is that? Is just because to achieve return at scale, you dampen it. There's not enough risk willing to take on, the opposing side of that trade. And a lot of the risk is looking for smaller opportunities that just can't service that size of market. So to me, one of the best ways of maintaining a strong amount of yield at size is being an index styled product, because that means we can continuously split our principal across these smaller, higher yearning opportunities rather than be stuck in an opportunity that's reflective of our whole size. Um, how sustainable they are, I don't know, right? Like interest rates have fallen to like zero, like 1% in like the TradeFi world. We've seen DeFi yields go pretty low as well. The way that I like to think about it is it's the market rate. When a DAO is trying to incentivize people to be in their, LP, they need to convince them that the return for being in my LP is worth it relative to the market rate, right? And like the market rate is some esoteric, bullshit. I generally don't like the term the market rate. But like it's useful in this context to just say like, hey, if you can't get more money elsewhere, you don't care that the money you're getting is 1%. If you can get 15% elsewhere, yes, now suddenly you care that you're not getting the like easily achievable market valuation. And so rgUSD kind of provides this like base rate. It says, hey, we're going to hunt for, what's relatively safe at our sizes, but which like is competitive with what you're going to get if you leave us. And that should allow any DAO to basically have a pretty easy decision. Like, do we want the market rate? If the rates go down, we're going to get less, but all of our competitors are going to get less too. So is that really a problem? That's at least how I look at it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's opportunity cost, effectively, isn't it? So
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. And do you? I mean, there are active like money managers out there doing this all the time, but
Yep.
That's an overhead as well, isn't it? And people generally don't really want to be in that game. The way I see this in the kind of DeFi scheme is, I'm really old in the tooth, and I programmed a long time ago. But we were programming like DLLs for Microsoft, and
Yep.
you had a bunch of DLLs, and you could call them, and they were quicker than writing the functions yourself, but it was messy. And then they built another layer on it called, and
Always.
now you press a button, and hey, presto, you've got a full stack working website and database ready and waiting. So to me, this is one of the building blocks getting better, and making things easier for people to do rather than have to get their hands dirty and spend a lot of time and effort doing it, making them more efficient, so because they can do it more and faster. So this is to me how I see, DeFi is going the way of programming, in that it's making things easier. It's
Yeah.
always automating things, and we're helping it get to the like fourth generation language kind of thing. So we're probably between 3 and 4 at the moment, but I can see in a few years, somebody will literally press a button, and something will decide the most efficient way of using your money. So you just say, okay, today I'm feeling risk averse. Go and get me 3%, and it'll just happen.
Yeah, that's like the intense meta that people are talking about. I am personally very hesitant to trust AI to invest my money. But definitely like the space is moving in that direction. The space wants to have the ability to like request someone else provide service and to be able to describe it lightly and have it executed on. We're already seeing a lot of like intense language kind of come out. I think what is interesting about rgUSD in as a non-intent based thing, um, is it rotates for you. So like if we were gonna have like an active managing service, right? I give my money to this active managing service that's not like liquid and deep. Then someone LPs against my token, and now that's not the best opportunity anymore. I need to rotate. That allows all of these other DAOs to seek out the best yield without now needing to migrate their LP position. They don't need to coordinate a whole bunch of individuals to move from one pool to another pool. It provides a single unit of account that then is able to make these rotations without altering the markets that it's deposited in. And I think that that's really powerful. rather than moving your money all around, we collectively just rebalance, and now all of our positions are updated and none of us have to move, and that should save like a lot of gas.
Yeah, sorry, Braden, I got on a roll there.
No, you're totally good. I think that's really interesting. Saving gas, the all the collateral, less moving parts.
Yep.
That's always good. So I guess like with the collateral in mind, how will rgUSD maintain its peg under different market conditions, especially during high volatility? We did see this weekend USDE, Ethena
Yeah.
stablecoin, that depegged a little bit.
Mhm.
You know, Tell us more about that with
Yeah.
rgUSD.
Yeah. So I find it interesting that people are, kind of on Ethna for that. Largely what I'm seeing is that was like the market rate. But I need to follow up on that and see if it's like redemption rates were all fucked up. But largely there are two prices for everything. There's a market rate and a redemption rate. And a lot of things are far more volatile on the market rate side. How do we keep our market rate peg is distributing incentives and making it something that's attractive, but also making it very easy to come in and out of. So like what we largely see in any stablecoin that reaches sufficient size is you need to be able to allow people to back it with stables, or be able to swap it for stables, or be able to, freely exchange collateral uh, with other stables. And so like Maker uses PSM for USDC, which is the price stability module. In Maker, they say, hey, who wants to leverage ETH when ETH is crashing? The price of DAI is going to shoot up as people are trying to repay their loans. We need someone to produce more DAI when the price of DAI is going up, or rather, when the price of our collateral is going down. And what they came up with was basically the price stability module, which was just like, just give us stables and we'll exchange it for DAI and give you DAI, and then we'll have stables and you'll have DAI. And now DAI will be more backed by stables when the price of ETH is collapsing, and that should, help prevent the actual redemption price from breaking. And this has worked pretty well for DAI, with the exception of like when USDC is going through a banking crisis, everyone swaps their USDC for DAI at 1-to-1, because it has less USDC risk than pure USDC, even though it's very backed by USDC. And so, Maker basically ate all of this USDC risk during the time when USDC was most risky. The bet paid off for them, right? The bet paid off for them. I mean, they didn't really super profit, but like the bet paid off. They didn't lose a bunch of money. And so on that front, what RTokens do really well is we're super capital efficient. We don't have this leverage behind us, so we don't have problems of this volatile backing is collapsing versus us pushing our market rates all around. That is able to stay pretty stable, and the ability for anyone to come in and mint and redeem at the underlying balance basically is a very strong way of ensuring that the market price stays good. One additional way we can back the market price is to ensure that people borrow it, because the more debt denominated in a token, the better the market as a whole tries to defend its market price, because if it's collapsing, I can pay back my debt cheap now. So I have more reason to buy it when it's under peg. And so all these kinds of things make a healthy token. Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And then additionally, all our tokens will basically keep governance in check by saying, hey, if you fuck around, you're gonna find out by getting slashed. Because we are able to in our contracts detect if the price of something has depegged versus what we expect it to be, and if it maintains that for a period of time. I believe it's 1 day, but this is configurable per our token, so it could have different ones across different our token parameters. But I believe it's 1 day, and if it maintains that depeg for 1 day, it will basically auction off the collateral, the governance token, to repurchase collateral, and that should help basically recover against things that have accrued bad debt. Like say we're lending an Aave and Aave acquires much bad debt, and we want to be able to cover that. Additionally, in the future, I would really like to create a different type of vault. I'm very inspired by Go. Go lets you deposit Go in the security module, and that means that Go backs Go. And so we could do something like SDI, where you take, rgUSD and you put it in this vault and you earn yield, but everyone else is, deploying their rgUSD on the market to get yield. Why can you deploy and not have to do anything additional to earn yield? And I think that trade-off should be your first loss capital. You now back all the other rgUSD. If you want to access this, low risk yield source without having to take additional steps like everyone else in the market, the trade-off for that is you take on first loss capital risk, like Go is doing with their safety module. And I think that will basically allow some people to get a little bit of leveraged return, because I doubt it's going to be like fully capitalized. People are going to be somewhat hesitant to take that risk. But it will allow a significant amount of first loss capital to be acquired, that very easily translates, right? Like if I need to clear 5% of bad debt and I have 5% of the token supply in my hand, I just delete that 5% of the token supply. Now I have no bad debt anymore. And so I think that's like a really powerful tool that I would really like to get incorporated into rgUSD over time.
Is that available in the code now? That sort of.
No. So we would need an update. Like right now we do have like first loss capital, which is in the form of governance token. But we would need to make some changes to allow us to have like a rewards vault that acts as a stage of loss capital.
Where do you think it would be first loss, or would it be like
I
like
believe second loss for
so
this type of vault. I think that governance should always take first loss, and if after that, there's still loss, we pass it on to these token holders because they have less influence in a loss occurring than governance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you consider even something like a 75-25 split in governance to these people in that vault? It seems like very like super duper risk free, depending upon how interesting the the staking gets for RSR holders.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is,
Because we look at EUSD and it's like, okay guys, you can probably stop staking now.
Right? Yeah. Like USD is like gigabacked, and so I'm trying to convince people to take some of the yield going towards USD stakers and direct it into other kinds of like marketing incentives that can lock in future holders.
We're talking about that tomorrow night.
Oh, lovely, great.
Mhm.
Yeah, because this is definitely like a philosophy I've been pushing, and Reserve has been catching the wave, and so I do think that that's like an important discussion to be had. In terms of like rgUSD, I do think that it should be a second loss, but I also think that we should be acquiring Pole, or like protocol and liquidity that can act as a buffer before governance gets slashed, or inline.
Interesting.
Something more like that 75-25 split. I think Pole can service that in a way that I don't think necessarily like public holders should.
Interesting.
I'm guessing you could potentially set that up so that it becomes some sort of governance decision, or when you create the R token, you get to decide.
Yeah. So this would be something that each R token would have very set up individually. It would be like a collateral plugin that's very much plug and play based on what that sub community wants.
Well, these could get really flowery, essentially.
Right?
Yeah. This is just the start. There's so much that could be added on.
So yeah, have you ever heard of programmable money? Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, okay. So about the collateral then. So At the moment, it's a single collateral, but what are your thoughts on what should be collateral? What do you think people should be deciding about for that?
Yeah. So initially, we wanted to basically say, hey, the most expensive part about our tokens is like minting them. So if we want to grow rapidly, we need to minimize those costs, and that's why we only have a single asset backing right now. The plan is definitely to expand to broader deployments, especially if we want to hedge market rates. Like um, if the rate in SDI goes down and the rate somewhere else goes up, like we're not offering the market rate to have a very specific rate. We want to have broad exposure to make sure that we balance with the market. I personally find Curve USD very interesting. I'd love if the governance set that's attracted to this token is more into supporting the kind of decentralized stable options. Everyone's using USDC and Tether. They don't need help. They don't need, more. But like Dai's a G, it could use some love from the community. Curve USD, I think, is really innovative on their liquidation mechanism in a way that I don't think others have really approached, and I think that that's something that should be supported. I'd love to see stuff. I'm personally a giant fan of Euler. I would love to see like a DAI lent in Euler or some other stablecoin lent in Euler as like a lending platform partner. Um, but there's like a ton of new lending primitives that have been coming up, and I would love to see a lot of collateral dispersed across those, where we can kind of you know bump up the use of the more DeFi oriented projects and be a good partner to people trying to push the envelope in a decentralized way.
Hmm. Hmm. Great. Yeah. Good answer. Um, over to you, Braden, I think.
Okay, so tell us more about how rgUSD plans to scale. What are some of the technical or operational limitations it might face as it expands?
Yeah. So one thing that I have been very concerned about is distributing yield to small pools on L1s. Like say someone puts, $1,000 in LP and then wants their cut of revenue. Well, to harvest and take care of that is probably not very efficient. Um, and so, you know, when we initially rolled it out, I was trying to set up some kind of minimum cap. Uh, and basically there was arguments about that. People aren't really cool with minimum cap, it seems. So the real risk is like, gas spikes to 300 Gwei and we're not able to service a market position that would have otherwise earned yields, but with gas as high as it would, the gas would completely eat the yield. Um, and so in that sense, gas is kind of our enemy. How do we scale around gas? Um, in another sense, how do we scale operationally? We had discussed like these ZK proofs should allow us to service more parties. We need to be able to measure things. So for things like Uniswap V3, I would really be excited about supporting Uniswap V3 positions because that way you can have like ETH USDC pairs or ETH USD pairs that would be incentivized. No one incentivizes ETH dollar pairs, but like this would be like a way to do that. I think that would be really cool. But it's difficult to actually reward a Uniswap contract. Like the default rewards contract is based on like your your size within a particular tick, rather than like the amount of an asset you have in your market. So we would need to get like a liquidity manager layer involved that would fungibilize it and then allow us to reward a rewards contract around that management layer. Um, that can add some complexity that I'm still talking to various parties about how we can navigate. Potentially Bunny could be really good there because they already have incentives and they already have management, and so it could be a nice pairing. But there are numerous Uniswap v3 managers that might also be intrigued. So like, how do you scale those decisions? And then how do you scale to L2s? My personal philosophy is that you build this on an L1 and you bridge up to L2s, and that way you can have a consistent asset across all of these L2s. A lot of people feel that that things should just be deployed natively on L2s, and I view that as kind of competing with yourself and harming your own network effect. So like, what is the best way to approach that? I have opinions. I don't necessarily know if they're the right ones, but I would love to see us go real hard on L1, build up some initial liquidity that will be able to service bridges, and then push hard on various L2s. Like I personally love Arbitrum. I would love to see rgUSD up on Arbitrum. If there are other places the community wants to go, I think one of the really cool aspects about this is like, if you bridge it somewhere and then try to register a rewards contract with us, we are now obligated to try to service your rewards contract. So really, like, if people want to take it places, they should take it places and force us to adapt and grow and push liquidity to across the whole metaverse.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
really
So,
interesting.
yeah, we know that Reserve has recently deployed their contracts onto Arbitrum, I think. I'm not exactly sure how far that they are in that journey. It might be that things are starting in the next couple of months. I'm not too sure. Do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, I do know that Arbitrum has these rewards programs that are built into their ecosystem, and that's attractive. They also have like the most liquidity in
Well,
DeFi. They are the most DeFi oriented roll up in the EV ecosystem as far as I'm concerned. And I know that we are looking to take advantage of their long-term alignment program, or it used to be like short-term something, now it's long-term something, but IP, long-term IP, I want to say, but maybe it's a different acronym. I'm sorry, I'm really bad with acronyms. So they have this long-term incentives program, and Reserve wants to be a part of that. So we have been looking to deploy. I do believe that we've been sorting out some things, but I think one of like the bigger concerns that we had is that the way that they treat time is different from how Base treats time, is different from how Ethereum treats time.
well,
Which is like one of these, like, time shouldn't be the confuse, but no, obviously time is actually very difficult to measure and like yada yada. So I do know that that was like one of our biggest friction points, and I do think that we have addressed that with our recent deployment there. But I think that we were deploying on the testnet still. I'm not sure if we've deployed to mainnet. That's you know I should probably keep stronger tabs on that than I do. But I just trust it's coming. That we have engineering working on it, and I'm sure that they will solve whatever obstacles are in the way.
It looks like on the reserve register you can bridge. So if you go to the bridge on reserve register, you can bridge to Arbitrum 1 right now. So you can bridge ETH.
Oh, I think that might have been today, because I saw that Patrick posted a tweet that that was showing something of that nature. Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
interesting. Yeah, there's ETH, RSR, eUSD, and rgUSD. All four of those assets can be bridged to Arbitrum right now via the Register app.
Yeah, good for Register app. Good job, Patrick and team. Crushing
Yeah.
it.
Honestly, I've showed this interface to a couple different people, and like, you guys are killing it. I talk to Eric often too, and he's I tell him he's doing such a good job.
Yeah,
It's
he really
beautiful.
is. He really
Yeah.
is.
Okay, where were we? Okay, so Mala, do you want to take the next one?
sure. Okay, so yeah, we've described what it is, what it does, what it's good at. So who are the next conversations with that you want? Who are the people you want to talk to, and what are the next steps for scaling RgUSD?
Yeah. So we had we're taking a somewhat aggressive strategy of pre-launching a bunch of gauges for other potential partners. I believe the list of those is like Curve USD, MKUSD, ALUSD, DALA, and our base pool with USD and USDC. There might have and FX USD of Aladdin protocol. There might be another one, but I want to say that those are our initial targets. And basically we said, hey, these are people who currently are playing the incentives games. They're currently, involved in the curve wars. They seem like ideal partners for us. And so we'd like to get them on board. Some of those people are going to be incentivizing the next round. Others maybe the round after. They're with DAOs, you can't always expect a fast turnaround from everything. And so over the next couple of weeks, we're expecting to start having more like short-term liquidity incentive partner agreements. And with all of these kinds of agreements, it comes down to like after a trial period, is it working? Is it not? And we feel that that it will be working in a way that is really, really obvious. We ran some simulations with the Curve US with the Curve Sim. They have a simulation model for mapping out all of their different pools with different pool parameters. And one of the really interesting aspects that we ran into is you keep this tighter concentration, you get more swaps, but then you have less rgUSD, you get less lending interest. So you actually end up making less money servicing more swaps in some cases. And so like that was fucking that's crazy to me. That was not something that I expected to have to try to address. But when going through that, we did find that a lot of these pools, even with less swap volume, were servicing a reasonable amount of swap volume while still earning significantly more money. And the simulator assumes only arbs are made, no like excess floaty trades, so like it's not 100% future accurate. But I think that once like the first couple weeks of having like live pairs with like real not us partners, that's really going to demonstrate a significant amount of additional revenue for these pools, and other people are going to take notice and seek us out. I truly view it as the token that's going to sell itself. We just need to get like that initial demonstration proof of concept up. But like right now with SDI earning 15% and most swap rates being something like 4, you're just going to do a lot better optimizing for lending revenue at like the current market conditions of like lending rates are way overblown than you would optimizing for swaps. What's nice is if that the market rate changes and the market rate isn't so great anymore, Curve allows governance to vote to adjust the position, or like the A factor and the gamma factor and all of these other fancy V2 maths factors. So if lending rates become less attractive at a certain point, we can always adjust our pools without needing any LPs to migrate to optimize more for swaps at that point. But sorry, I kind of got a little off topic there, but I guess like at the core, over the next couple of weeks, we're looking to get these initial liquidity partners up, and we expect that to demonstrate the value of rgUSD by showing how much more revenue is coming in through these lending reward shares. We expect that all of our partners will be very satisfied with the experience and will keep going with incentives, and we'll start looking for additional partners. I personally would love to start reaching out to like Bunny and other V3 style managers because I think that there's a lot of alignment there. But I really would love to have hooks. Hooks would be great because that way you sell all of your rgUSD for DAI, and then you remove all of that DAI and you mint more rgUSD, and then you rebalance the pair, and like with hooks RTokens are really, really, really well suited to take advantage of them in ways that other stablecoins, which maybe you need someone to like repay debt to remove it from supply, are not able to. So to me, my focus is really proving the concept on Uniswap. I think will be an important next step, and bridging it up to L2s that we can start importing L1 yield into these L2 ecosystems. I think will also be very attractive to the markets there. But largely L2s have less stablecoin native players. So we need to focus our L2s more on servicing markets as a whole. Whereas on the L1 layer, we're really looking to service, stablecoin providers and direct co-incentive pairs.
Could I ask? So
Yeah.
this is so like how many, like a year from now or even just 6 months from now, how many different pools do you envision being like collateral within side rgUSD? Like how does that?
Inside rgUSD or like rgUSD would be inside of them?
Well, I mean both.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's
I guess I can
might
try
be a bad
answer from
question.
both. No, I
Yeah.
can answer from both. Like, I would say that rgUSD's collateral will largely probably hedge away from LPs, at least until lending rates really, really collapse. Just because LPs are harder to detect defaults on. Um, we can, and we likely will continue to add them, but I just feel like lending is a cleaner trade-off for the time being, and often is less expensive to get in and out of if you don't have too many LP pools, which then need swaps, which then need there's more costs involved in the minting with LPs. Um, I do think that we will likely support LPs as collateral in the future. But largely I want it to reflect scale. Like my loose framework is like every, $20 million we add another collateral. And maybe, after 100 million, we like half that pace or something. Um,
Okay.
that might be way overkilling, but like that's like my internal mental model. It probably doesn't scale as well as it should. Um, but that's something that I'll face when we actually have several million in TVL. Right now at 500,000, I don't have to worry about too much higher than 20 million. Um, as far as like external pools in a year, like I'm probably the wrong person to ask this because I am so hyper bullish on this concept and idea and framework. But like I would want most pools in DeFi in 2 years to be paired with rgUSD. Personally, I think that there shouldn't be a DeFi pool that isn't paired with rgUSD because then they're all leaving money on the table.
Yeah, that's a wide reach.
You would think if there's like like capital preservation, is like mostly true, then it would be a logical thing to happen.
Yep, is hey, my DAI is already earning money. Why aren't I earning money holding DAI? My USDC is already lent out to a bunch of banks. Why don't I capture any of that return? My LUSD is already like earning a ton of money in the stability pool. Why can't I take that LUSD somewhere else and earn money? All of these things are basically like the questions of DeFi. And rgUSD is basically saying, hey, what if we package all that and let you take the yield wherever you want? Why don't you pack your yield in a lunchbox and bring your lunchbox wherever you want to go? And so I see a lot of people packing their lunchboxes and demanding that wherever they prefer to go, allow them to use this token instead, because like why should I give up 15% native yield on my stablecoin just to come to your opportunity? And I think a lot of opportunities will actually be like, yeah, you're right, why don't we make all of our LPs that 15% more money? That's kind of my view of it.
I think that's really interesting. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how all of this plays out. What about the Reserve conference is coming up? Are you excited for that? The one in July in San
Yeah.
Fran?
Yeah. So Reserve does like a lot of conference, not for companies I've worked for. Reserve does a lot of conferences. I'm sure that they're in the DeFi space. They are not very conference focused versus many others, but we normally end up as a team at 3 conferences a year. And a lot of times, a lot of what's spent is like doing, internal efforts and like doing our own hackathon or our own events and like side events. So I believe for this upcoming one, the Moratorium, that it's going to be much more like community focused, and I think that's going to be really great. It'll be great to, be in San Fran. I haven't been out there in quite some time, so that'll be good. It'll be really nice to be able to talk with like the broader reserve community, especially if it's like really focused. Because we should be able to basically have a bunch of people who are already, aligned in a vision. And and if you have an event that doesn't have to align people in vision, it can take those concepts way further because it's not like held down by the baggage of like getting everyone on the same page. It's more like how can we moonshot, and people are more than hyped to kind of express their fullest vision of what something could be. So to me that's really exciting as like a nerd of these things. Like there are very few places in the world that I could just be like, here, let me talk about a bunch of fucking stablecoin shit, and people will like totally understand what I'm talking about. So to me, it's going to be like a really fun event. It'll be really exciting to sync up, learn like where the pain points are of people in our ecosystem and how we can address them more, and learn like what people are most hyped by, so we can make sure that that's packaged into an R token.
I did go to ReGov. I think
Yeah.
I was sitting behind you at ReGov, and everything I've heard from like on Twitter after the event was everybody was like super duper impressed. They were like, "Wow, Reserve is really thinking about these things from different angles that most people aren't." And yeah, even the question set within ReGov was pretty impressive. So
Yeah,
it was really cool.
I was so pleased with Riga. It came out so good. Everyone who worked on that, like, thank you. You really crushed it out of the water.
And then obviously Stable Summit was really cool. Got to meet
Mhm.
a lot of different people, but I'm like super excited for the Reserve conference. I think that everybody in the Reserve community should go. Um, yeah, I think it'll be like kind of like a not like a once in a lifetime opportunity, but you know you don't get very many of these, so make it worth it and
The
enjoy
first
life a
one
little bit.
special, right? The
Yeah,
first one's always like hard to reproduce.
exactly. um,
I think we've really kind of cracked open the, not going to say the code, but this conversation for me has expanded what I think Reserve could be. Rather than just taking it a long way past what an R token is, as just a bit of a stable coin that's kind of a safe stable coin, and Reserve, with the kind of technique that Meir's brought with this thinking, makes you think about how much uh, other possibilities there are with R tokens rather than just vanilla. It's a stable coin. It's really safe because it's backed. Yeah, there's a lot more can be done here. I'm pretty certain of it.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to like have the opportunity with a technology stack that can service it is really, you know, so
That's the
hyped.
key, isn't it? Now you can think it, but now you can do it as well.
Yeah,
You can carry it out, which is amazing.
amazing. Literally, it feels such great relief to be able to like actually take these ideas and say we can actually do them. Like that's something I haven't actually heard in my entire time in DeFi. And so I'm excited to finally leave my mark on DeFi. This is how I'm gonna do it. I'm very pleased.
First billion R token.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
um, yeah, no, I'm Yeah, I think, and we can cut some of that out if we want to. But yeah, this was really good, Meyer. We really do appreciate it, and we honestly, dude, again, like we've been talking about this, trying to understand where, like, is this like, could we have like another Curve Wars esque scenario play out, for this token itself, where a whole bunch of people are, trying to acquire RSR governance tokens, just to do all these different things, in the prominence that the protocol gets, from the rise of this R token, all of those different things. I think yeah, it seems like we're in for a show.
Yeah, it's going to be a trip. This is going to be, in my opinion, one of the most political R tokens out there, um, because it's going to be like, if we're encouraging a lot of people to pair with it, then all of those people are going to want their asset to be the backing asset, and so a lot of people viewed like the curve wars on an R token as like voting on where to send the yield, but I think the curve wars on an R token are far more voting on what's the backing collateral. Uh, you know, uh, I think that if you vote on where to send the yield, it makes it much harder for people to want to pair with you, because now they have to, commit to political games. But if just like pairing with you gets them money, that's the easy side of the decision. And now the actual like governance conflict is in like, how do we earn money? How do we deploy our assets? And most of the people interested are going to have a preferred asset that they would much prefer we deploy in. And so I see that getting extremely political, often very heated, and one of like the most exciting, governance problems in DeFi to try to approach right now. Like, managing collectively owned money is still like a hard problem. Reserve approaches it by basically saying, hey, if you want to leave, you can leave, and that's like the big protection that you have. Um, but um, but like obviously we don't want people to leave. We want to solve it before they have to, leave with their feet. And so treasury management still is very hard. So many treasuries get rugged. Like this re- removes the opportunity for treasury to get rugged because it doesn't really own anything. Although we have introduced poll, so will that fuck around with some shit? Like this is going to be a really, really, really fun governance experiment, I think. That should push, in my mind, like DeFi as a whole forward.
Yeah, it
I'll,
could be seen as a sandbox, couldn't it? In
Yep.
that, yeah, yeah, for sure.
I just have an interesting idea, and I was trying to figure out, how to do this, in terms of like collateral wise for an R token. So there's like this, idea of a meme index, like meme coin
Yep.
index, right? People talk about this,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so you throw the meme coins in the R token. How does it get yield so that people stake and people govern it, and there's like interest in the thing? And so it's like you need to find something that makes it, like generate revenue. And so
Yep.
one of the ways I thought about this, and maybe you have a better answer than this already, which is perfect. And I'm not looking to deploy this potentially, but I could tell other
Yeah. Yeah.
people about it. But if you took like maybe 5 base coins or something like that, just called it blue chip, okay? And so you called this R token blue chips, or blue chip or something, and it's got 5 base meme coins, and the underlying is, LP positions for those meme coins, and and then they're paired against rgUSD or something. What do you think about that? Like it would earn revenue, right? I
Yep.
think, and then like, so that means that people could insure it, and then that means that people could also govern it too. There would be a shared interest in doing that. And then the people that held it could even get a split of that yield as well. So you could outperform, those tokens as a whole, by holding it. If that made sense, if you held their respective weights in the token.
Yeah. So this actually is like a very interesting problem, right? Like, so if you want to make like a basket of meme coins don't make money, and so like you have no revenue. You're just like kind of like a diversification basket play. But if you want to introduce revenue, suddenly you're doing like LPs, which means that like if something pumps, you're gonna lose to impermanent loss. So you end up in like this kind of tough place where like you want to be introducing these like better market mechanics. But if like you're the only better market mechanic, you're just getting kind of drowned out. One thing that I think would be, really interesting is to pitch rgUSD as a, base pair for these. Like most memes basically start with like an LP position. Here's my meme, here's my reasonable asset that will buy my meme. But like if you were to pair that with rgUSD, now your meme has native buying pressure. Your LP position is earning revenue, and that revenue is going to buying more meme, and so it's like price support. I think that many memes should use rgUSD as like a price support mechanism. But especially because like whoever invents the meme is generally like the LP there, they burn the LP tokens or whatever. Like it would be great to just have that like earning money and supporting the price in a way that that a token that's not earning yield does not support. But on the other hand, like if you wanted to make a meme index, like you can do it with like a bunch of LPs. You do face like this impermanent loss thing, but like maybe that's not like super much of a concern for you. Like you might want to structure it in like several Uniswap positions or something. But like then if you have like multiple memes, one meme's gonna do good, one meme's gonna do bad. And then you're gonna have like a bunch of people like we should buy the cheap one or we should double up on the tall one, and you end up basically with like people chasing to rebalance LP positions that are designed to be path independent and then introducing the path dependency risk, and then like the market goes the other way and people end up extra fucked. So like governance is a really important aspect of that. And like how I would almost like for something like that try to push for like some kind of committee, maybe like of hats holders, like we do elections and these people like decide are like meme masters and maybe decide how to rebalance. But I think it would be difficult to acquire a RSR holder set who's also like achieved mastery of meme coins. I just like I'm honestly probably just the wrong person to ask because I'm so bad at meme coin trading. I like don't do it. I stick to like financial infrastructure and DeFi. So like I'm not like super in tune with like how to make a meme a success.
Yeah, I'm mostly concerned about how do you make the underlying generate revenue in a
Yeah,
sustainable way that can also be purchasable
yeah,
and held, right? And so it's like okay, well, we're gonna talk to Aave and we're gonna say, hey, can you allow people to deposit and borrow, um, you know, uh, I don't know, whatever,
yeah.
some
Joe
base
Boat.
meme, and it's like, is that going to happen? I don't know. For all five coins, I don't know.
Definitely
Um,
not on Ave, but
yeah,
definitely on like Anja and all these other like permissionless lending platforms that are coming out. I can definitely see meme coin stuff. There's a group called FloorDAO who is basically a collective ownership of NFTs focused on market making those NFTs. Um, and one of the like the interesting aspects is like they one of the very important parts of their journey is maintaining a certain amount of like ETH uh reserves because they have to be able to market make at all these different prices, so they need to make sure that they have ETH. And so I would say if that's like something that you're interested in, you should visit FloorDAO and see kind of what they're up to, because that's the closest thing to like an NFT index that's focused on like revenue that I've seen be successful so far.
interesting. I'm going to check out Ashna as well.
Yeah.
And I've heard that name like a dozen times now.
Mhm.
And you're saying permissionless borrowing the lending pools. Interesting. I
Yeah.
wonder how that works in terms
So
of like risk.
yeah, it's very much more active lenders is what it is. Is the lenders are determining the interest rate not from utilization, but from like basically like how many lenders are willing to lend at a particular uh, collateral ratio or a particular lending interest. And so the available lending supply basically determines what collateral ratio and what interests are available to you as a borrower. And those people are always moving around their loans. One of the interesting aspects about I cannot pronounce it right now. I'm so sorry for that. Ajna is is uh, basically like it's very 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 active. But to liquidate someone, you have to put up a bond, and if basically like the price recovers during that bond period, which I think is a day, like you basically lose money. You bought the dip and you still lost money because it recovered. And so that kind of like tries to defend against like manipulation where lenders are like, haha, I'm going to liquidate you by pushing my loans to say that your collateral needs to be super high, and then we're going to liquidate you underwater, and then and then we'll just profit. But this like bond mechanism like binds uh, so some like pain to a liquidator if they fuck around, and the price recovers within a certain amount of time. So it's a really cool primitive. I don't think it's like as great for like very efficient markets, but I think that like its bread and butter is going to be like these weird niche tokens that otherwise would be very difficult to put on something like Aave.
Interesting. I'm definitely going to take a look at it. Um, yeah. Uh, what else? What else would you like to talk about?
Um, if anyone out there is a curvenomics, Veconomics governance nerd, I would appreciate if you go and check out my new website, centerforllamas.com, and let me know if it can be helpful to you. Um, at Reserve, I've been kind of researching the curve wars pretty heavily, and I felt that there were resources that I wish would be available that are not. And Center for Llamas is my attempt to fill the gap on the missing view of economic governance. So take a look and give me feedback. That'd be really helpful.
I feel like it's a responsibility of ours as like governors and just like not like DeFi historians, but just like learning a little bit more about the curve wars. And maybe what we could do is like a future episode where we talk about it more. Maybe even you as well. Or maybe like I think Thomas is really into it, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Reserve as a whole is pretty into the curve wars because that's like basically how we've been incentivizing most of our tokens so far.
Hmm. I I think that would be kind of interesting, don't you think, Malo?
Yeah, I think so because
Okay.
it's got a lot of meat in it. There's a lot to talk about there.
A lot to talk about for sure.
I do think this has been really good, and I appreciate your time, Meyer, and thank you.
Thank you
Brilliant.
guys. I really appreciate you having me on and having like good questions and letting me kind of talk my ass off. Really appreciate
Oh, we like long form here, but that's our thing.
Yeah,
that.
no, we do. We really like it. So, thank you, and I'm gonna jump off, and you guys just enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah,
And
have a
you,
great one, man. Pleasure.
Thank you.
bye now.
Peace.